Hi there. Not only can the MPC record audio from the Aerophone, but it can also record MIDI data. In the last video, I brought together the MPC and the Aerophone to see what the default MIDI settings on both devices would do. But not everyone was happy with the way that I presented my findings. I had this comment from Alpha Beats. Lots of errors in this video. These editing problems you describe have nothing to do with the Aerophone. This is a matter of the editing software. Obviously, Alpha Beats wasn't happy, so I decided to revisit my conclusions and the wish lists in this video. In retrospect, it might have looked like I was blaming Roland for everything that I was coming across, but that wasn't at all my intent. I was exploring the interaction between the two products. The issues didn't necessarily come from one product or the other, it was just how well they meshed together for the user. So this video is an extended conclusion and also a new wish list that applies to both Roland and to Akai. The first thing that I discovered was the necessity to hold one's bite when playing and not let it relax. With the Aerophone, it doesn't matter if you relax your jaw when you've finished playing the note. With the plugins in the MPC, or any other synthesizer for that matter, there's a release phase, and so you have to keep your bite until that release phase is finished. The second thing we came across is what happens when there's any overdubbing. The default behavior with the MPC is when it gets to the end of the sequence, it loops back to the beginning again and goes into overdub mode. The implication of that is even if you're not playing notes, the breath and bite signals will be overlaid on what you played before. That makes it important that you stop the recording as soon as you've finished playing. The issue is, what if you want to play right up to the end of the sequence, but then it's going to loop around before you've had a chance to stop anything? The way around that on the MPC is that you switch off the looping, and when you're recording that way, it will just extend the sequence, and then you can, when you've finished recording, then you can trim that back to the original length of the sequence. The next thing we came across was the time control. That's the quantizing on the MPC. If that is set to on, which is the default, what will happen is it will move the notes, but it won't move the bite and the breath, and so they will go out of sync and it won't sound right. The way around that is to switch off the time control, but of course then you have to make sure that you play in time. We also found that editing the sequence, so once you've recorded it and you start editing it, if you move the notes forwards or back in time, they again get out of sync with the breath and the bite. Only the notes get moved by the MPC, not the breath and bite. The one change that you can make is to adjust the pitch of the notes you played. So it becomes more important to play in time than to actually hit the right note in this context. The exception is tuned percussion. It doesn't seem to react to bite and breath, so that means you can move notes around. But what you can't do is record using tuned percussion thinking that you can then switch to a regular scene, because that won't work because the breath and the bite are still in there. We also found that the Aerophone produces a lot of breath and bite data, and so trying to edit it manually would obviously be impractical. It would take so long that it would be far quicker just to play it again. Moving forward, I'm going to experiment with MIDI on the Aerophone, but that's going to be just for the drum kits, because that's where the benefit will be, to be able to record the drum kits and edit them around, and that'll be for future videos. For the melodic scenes, I'm just going to use audio because that will just be so much easier. And now for the wish list. The first thing obviously is local off on the Aerophone. It's a standard feature on MIDI keyboards since the beginning of MIDI, and there's no reason why the Aerophone should not have local off. For the MPC, the request is that the byte and breath data should be moved either when quantizing or manual editing. When the notes move, the byte and breath should also move by the same amount. For monophonic instruments like the Aerophone, that should be straightforward, because they can just assume that any byte and breath before a note on belongs to the previous note. For polyphonic instruments, that won't be so easy, but I'm sure they can work out a way of handling that gracefully as well. My second wish list item for the Aerophone is that it should be able to send and receive on any or all MIDI channels, and that should be user configurable. Part 1 showed me experimenting with these two great products. If you haven't seen it yet, here's a link to it. If you have seen it, then YouTube will suggest another video for you to check out. Do you want me to make more videos like this? If so, please let me know by clicking on the like button. Thanks for watching.